Hello, word nerds! Happy Sunday! Welcome to our live chat. Today's topic is our book club for the Bells by Dhonielle Clayton. Thank you all for joining us. If you haven't read the book, there are going to be major spoilers ahead, so just be prepared. If you have read the book, feel free to stay. Make sure to put comments down below. We'll be answering them as we speak about things. I obviously went all out today, because I was like, you know what? I might as well. If she's gonna go all out, I'm gonna go all out. So I packed out the pink eyeshadow, and hopefully it doesn't look like I have pink eye, or at least it looks like I have like a fashionable version of pink eye.
Pink eye, but make it fashion.
Exactly. So I guess we'll just go down the line and kind of see what each of us thought about it. The first person I have is Emma.
Sorry, you froze for a second. So I just heard my name. I was like, wait, what? I give it like 4 stars. I read it when it first came out and I listened to the audiobook, so it's been a while and I don't remember a ton of details like names and stuff, although we kind of refreshed them before we started the chat. But yeah, so like 4 stars. I think it's a solidly like really good book. It like deals with some really interesting like concepts, and I like the world a lot. Like I sometimes felt like the writing bothered me a little, like the prose style of it. Some of the floweriness of it bothered me sometimes. And some of the like world building, I wanted a little bit more information about because I was a little bit confused, but overall pretty good.
Awesome. And then Kelly.
It was a 3.5 star for me, I think. I never really got fully pulled into it. Like I really liked the world building and the characters, but I think a lot of the flowery writing is just not a good fit for me. It didn't really feel like the pacing picked up until like halfway through the book. So it took me a while to like, oh, I'm interested in what's happening. And some of the character relationships felt odd to me, not like just, maybe it just wasn't what I was expecting, but I think it might've been just a wrong book, wrong time for me kind of thing. But overall, enjoyed it.
And what about you, Megan?
This was a solid 4 star for me. I felt similar to things other people said. I felt like there were a lot of things that I really, really liked, but then a few things that I was like, this makes no sense. And so those things kind of like, even though there were other things that I really loved, kind of tipped it away. I almost felt the opposite about the prose though. I felt like there was a lot of description, but like the prose itself felt pretty like just there, like it did its job. It told me what was happening on the page, and that's not my personal favorite type of prose. I like prefer every now and then to have like a little bit of like flowery language. So I don't know, 4 stars.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat, like very high 3/4 stars. I liked the concept of it. I think she twisted it a really good way, but some of the character connections I wasn't totally on board for, even though I liked most of the characters. And then the whole ending, I felt like the pacing was really off. Even though there were some really intense scenes, I felt like it went a little up and down, especially since like the halfway mark onward. But I mean, overall, it was a cool concept. I'm not sure if I'll read the second one though. So I remember being like really intrigued at the time when I finished it, and the second one just came out, and I'm kind of like, meh. So I don't quite know where my feelings stand, but I do have like vaguely positive feelings towards it.
Yeah.
That's not bad. More than vaguely positive, but like I remember it being positive.
Yeah.
It's the kind of book that like I'll like recommend to people at work when I feel like it's a good fit for what they're looking for. But yeah, like I don't really see myself reading the second book. Like there's other books that are a way higher priority for me to read than the sequel to this. So.
I feel like I might if it's available at my library. Like if I go one day and it's there, I might be like, yeah, I'll read that. Because it only took me like 2.5 days to read. So it was a very quick read.
Yeah, it is super fast.
I think in the like wrong book, wrong time for me thing, it comes down partly to, it still feels like I've read too many books that are similar to this. Like it was really good within that, like something's not quite right with this very interesting world that she built, but it still felt like I kind of knew how the story was going to progress. So it's more on me for having read too much of that when it was more of a thing. But
I did love that she didn't get the favorite position at first, because I feel like that subverts some tropes a little bit of like, look at me, I did it, I'm the favorite. Like, oh look, she didn't get it this time. This time I say it like every heroine is the same, but
I feel like it subverted it, but also like up until she became the favorite, like the story dragged because it was kind of like, what's the point of this? You know, like.
I do feel like it laid some groundwork for things that I assume will come up in book 2. So we saw like the crying bells in the chrysanthemum tea house, and nothing really happened with them in this book. So I assume they're a pretty big part of book 2. Is it just a duology?
I don't know, honestly. I just saw the second one just came out.
Goodreads will tell me.
Yes, what does Goodreads say? All hail, holy Goodreads. 3 books? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that it pulled on some kind of like classic dystopian almost. Like you could imagine this as maybe the society of like the Hunger Games, you know, in the Capitol or something with all the beauty related stuff. And then it has that kind of like Scott Westerfeld uglies type OG of like, oh, if you could be beautiful, then why not? And change it up all the time. And now this is in style, and now that's in style, and now having a huge nose is in style. And like that was a good commentary, very obvious commentary on beauty and society and whatever. But I like the way that she handled it. I thought it wasn't overly boring's not the right word. Like predictable.
Heavy-handed.
Yeah. I did like that it was more fantasy-based dystopian of like the Greece, the like
the Greece. I don't know.
So like the pale skin, red eyes, like basis of the society and how that kind of evolved. Like it was very different from just like a standard dystopian where our things have gotten out of hand. They kind of took it in a different, not direction, because starting point, but which was interesting.
Yeah, that was such a wild thing of like, oh, you're just born a super weird and hideous looking, and so now you're like, just you have to have a bell to come and like fix your face and make you look normal, and it's just like that's super weird.
Yeah, and I loved like the contrast or the character development, I guess, of her feeling like I am this very powerful person. I control basically the currency in this world. And then realizing throughout the course of the book that like, yes, I have this power, but people are using me as the currency instead of like me creating it myself.
Yeah, especially kind of like near, I think it's like the mid end when the awful princess Sophia, yeah, she's like using her to make her like ladies in waiting more beautiful, but also as like a punishment almost. And there's that super awful scene of her like molding someone over and over and over again until they die, and it was like, Jesus.
Yes, I have feelings about that scene. What was Amber doing in it? That was one of the things that I was like, this makes no sense to me, because you just came in and you were like, oh, well, we're on the same team, I'm going to tell you everything. And then suddenly she was like, but I have to beat you, even if it means killing this girl. And I was like, what are you doing?
Guess it goes back to we could spin a huge metaphor about, oh, it means people will do anything to be beautiful, and it's a competition to see, who is going to be the favorite, and that gives you power and everything. But that scene, I was also very angry at that scene, because it's like, Amber, what are you doing? Just like, guys.
The end of the book at that point, like that was the start of the climax of the book. And so I was like, oh, I thought you guys were together now. Like I thought you guys were in this together.
Yeah, even right from the beginning, I had trouble figuring out how I was supposed to feel about her relationship with Amber. Like at first it was sisterly and Amber was supposed to be her favorite, but everything seemed like Amber not petty, it was high stakes, but
to me.
Yeah, and like I really liked how she tried to handle the jealousy of Amber being chosen, and like that could have been a really interesting look at things, but it never quite felt like I understood the good side of their relationship, other than she told me that she liked Amber the most.
Yeah, it honestly felt like not as abusive as like Princess Sophia, but it felt like a very manipulative relationship. And so like at this point going into book 2, I don't trust Amber any more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, I like never got a sense or like understanding for why they ever were friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did like that there were a lot of like, I feel like Amber was kind of a foil to Camille, and also Sophia was like, they were different parts of like the negative traits of her personality. So I did find that really interesting. My internet is not good enough right now to check the comments. So if anyone else wants
and Griswold had mixed feelings, 3 stars. It was a solid book, but I wish there was a touch more world building and less beauty talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely remember, and it's been a while, so I don't remember exactly how much of it was addressed, but I remember feeling confused about like how many bells there are in each group and like how often there's a new group and like how often they cycle out. Like I was confused by the whole like now there's a new set of bells, so the last set of bells from just a few years ago is gonna like they're being taken out. Again, I was just very confused about how the system
and they all had the same birthday, but it was like I struggled there too. I'm like, I'm not sure I'm following.
They eventually go back to the school to have children, I guess. But like
they go back to have kids, but then also she wasn't born.
Yeah, bells are made.
Yeah.
And, like, that whole thing was super weird. And like that's kind of where they lost me because I was like, what?
See, like until later in their lives. Yeah, so I was just like confused about like when they go back to do that. Is it like right after they leave the tea house? I don't know. It was confusing. Why is there only like 1 bell per tea house? Like, I don't know. I was like,
how many tea houses are there?
Yeah, and there was a throwaway line about how like an earlier generation there were a lot more.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It was a really like interesting case of I felt like the world was so rich, but also parts of it felt like really superficial. Similarly with like what technology was available and what magic was available. Like I understood roughly what the bells could do, but then they would also suddenly have like the headlines were flashing and moving on the newspapers, and they're going to make her dress like be shorter and longer and change colors at the ceremony. And I was like, I don't get where that's coming from, but okay.
I think it was like yeah, like it was kind of like so flashy in your face that you're like, whoa, that sounds so cool, and like you're really drawn in because it's all this like bright colors and beauty and whatever, and then afterwards you're like, wait a minute, hold on.
Like, is this technology or are there other forms of magic other than the bells?
Yeah. And ultimately, like, it was so beautiful and stuff that it was very easy for me to just suspend my disbelief there and just be like, yeah, this just exists, because it was really cool.
Also, like teacup elephants.
Yes.
Like little like
so
teacup
many feelings.
sloths. Oh my god. I want one.
A little giraffe just like around the table.
So good. It's just like those little details that I'm like, yes, I'm here for it. And then when you like look on the back of the big scale, you're like, but how does the dress change shape? But I mean, whatever, it's fine.
It's sort of like a visual, very cool world with a lot of like interesting little details that I feel like would have worked better for me as like a CW TV show than as a book. Like Rain would be a really magic TV show. But like for a book, it was hard because I like expect more explanation for the world building in a book than I do in like a show. So
maybe it's because it's so like it's so visually focused, but it's in a written format that maybe like those two things don't quite work together. Maybe it clashes a little bit because you're like trying to see but also trying to read but also trying to visualize. I don't know. Like this would be gorgeous as a TV show.
Oh, it would be so good. I was, however, not here for the teacup monkey. I drew the line. That one creeped me out. That monkey was just always on Sophia's shoulder. And like, that one creeped me out. I don't know why.
Hardcore,
all the others were fine.
I mean, just Sophia in general was a really interesting villain. And at first I was like, no, I don't like her, but she got me in the end, honestly. Like there's a little bit of that morality kind of just enough sprinkled in there that I'm like, maybe she's gonna have a redemption arc. And then as soon as I saw that, it was just like, nope, shut that down. So
yeah, I loved the part where, like, I feel like it was the true showing of her personality where Camille was hurting Princess Charlotte. She had her like wrapped up in all the roses or the lilies or whatever, roses and lilies, and there were thorns, and she's like getting strangled by them. And Sophia, instead of being like, put her down, that's my sister, she was like, put her down, I get to be the one who's in charge of her fate.
Yeah, her idea of like control and family, and it was weird. but it was interesting. But it kind of just like, it's just some petty royals being like, I want to be in charge, I want to be the ruler, like I'm special and I get everything.
The fairest of them
Yeah,
all.
yeah, exactly. So she kind of did do that, like, yeah, she did do the fairest of them all, like evil queen type thing, but in a actually pretty good like
Scary
teen
way.
representation. Yeah, and it was a scary way. It wasn't just the like, oh, I shall have you executed. It was like, no, you could see it right away, and especially for like a teenage girl, you definitely see that as, oh, can I swear? I don't know, like, oh, like the bitchy girl from school that always wears pink, and she's so, she's the popular one, she's so rude and mean, and like it was kind of neat to actually see that in a like fantasy trope that had more
like,
real
mixed with
consequences.
mad scientist-y kind of like.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mhm.
Oh, it was weird.
Oh, she was very sweet. Although also I kind of feel like, so we know that there's this really beautiful sister who's coming up to be the queen, and then there's this little sister who's maybe not quite as beautiful in their minds or whatever. And then the princess mysteriously goes into a sleep, and no one's like, maybe this girl is to blame. Even Camille, it's like, who could be doing it?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Her being like, who could have done this to Charlotte? And I'm like, take a guess.
What do you mean? And then Camille gets poisoned by the same poison, and they don't see it in her blood, and she's still like, but I don't understand what could be going on with Charlotte. And it's like, I feel like everything has been very clearly laid out for you at this point.
Yeah, that was actually one of the connections that like kind of broke it down a little bit for me, because I was like, where are you going with this? And then it was like really obvious, and then they kind of just like played it off, and then it wasn't mentioned for a while, and then it was like, suddenly we know what's going on, and I was like, guys, like what? So yeah, that plot point, I was like, it could have been like a little better integrated, but like it's a cool idea, but yeah, also like, how have you not figured this out yet?
Yeah. Similarly, like, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, maybe it would have worked a little bit better if like they had met Charlotte first and then she had fallen into it, or like something like that, where it was more like immediate and it wasn't this like long standing thing that had gone on. Maybe it would have been a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like similarly, Camille is shown this creepy scientist room full of bell blood and stuff, and she's like, seems shady. And then a different bell or a servant or someone tells Camille what Sophia did to her last servant, and she's like, oh, so she's evil. It's like, did the laboratory not tell you that? And then she still takes 100 pages to tell the queen that she's on her side, even though she's consistently saying throughout the whole thing that Sophia can't be queen.
Yeah, I in general struggled with Camille. Like, I don't know. She like wasn't a strong enough character. Like, I didn't really get a very good feel for like who she was, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, like it just felt like she like consistently was not making connections or not making decisions or things like that because like the story needed her to take longer.
Yeah, I felt like that happened with a lot of characters. There was a lot of like withholding information so that it would come out at the proper moment.
Oh man, my favorite thing. Also, we were joking about this kind of before the chat, but there's a love interest. There's two. And we both everyone completely forgot about them until I was like, there has to be a love interest, like obviously. Like, who is he? Where is he? And I'm just like, we like sort of get him, but he's just like he's just there sometimes.
He's pretty and sassy every like 5 chapters.
Exactly. I was
like, I feel like there could maybe be like a point made for the fact that like Camille just like hasn't been exposed to men her entire life, especially boys her age. So, like, the moment she meets one who pays any amount of attention to her, she's like, obviously, I'm in love with this boy. But I feel like that's been a stronger point in the story rather than just like, ooh, cute romance. You know?
Maybe like Bree or someone being like, okay, but do you know him? Like, what do you really know about him?
Well, like Remy I like their friendship, honestly, a lot more than I like this like sassy pretty boy. So it's like, oh, that's cool. Like, they're friends. She like annoys him. You know, he's been charged with her. Doesn't really like it. But then like she grows on him. It's cute. You know. But then there's like a pretty sassy boy, and I was like, meh.
Well, and in the book, there's really no reason for us to believe that there's anything between her and Remy at this point. Like, it's very platonic, very like he's very into duty, which maybe resonates with her since she likes Amber so much for whatever reason. But I definitely, there was a part where they're talking around a fire or something, and it's just her and Remy, and they're going back and forth whenever the quiet stretches on for too long, and they like ask each other a question. And she's like, if it was August, the conversation would never lull. And I was like, but would you be talking about anything real, or would you just be telling him he's annoying?
Yeah, that's true.
The description for the second book like says Camille, her sister Adel, and her guard and new love Remy. So like, it's the second book.
Okay, good. I'm a big fan of Remy.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's like the best character.
I'm curious to see what's going on with August in book 2. Like, how on that side is he still? Because we kind of got left hanging with regards to him. Because I feel like he obviously wanted them to run away, which like that's not part of the plan. Like,
yeah,
it makes no sense for him to do that unless he's had a change of heart somehow. But then we never really revisit it. And also, why not tell her at that point what's going on? Like, oh, I'm in on this plot, but I don't want to be because I love you. Because we know each other very well.
Like, part of me is like, oh, it's really just like a commentary on society and beauty and how people, you know, don't look at ugly things and they only want to look at pretty things. But then I'm like, I don't think that was on purpose. I think that's just me reaching.
Also, apparently in the sequel, she meets an underground resistance movement of people who like reject beauty treatments. So that's cool.
Huh. Yeah. All right. But then I'm wondering how this whole series would end, because if we're going with this whole rebellion against the norm thing, and okay, so we meet a resistance now of people that reject beauty. So what's the plot going to be? Is it just going to be that what are they doing? Overthrowing the beautiful people? Like, are we putting new standards of beauty? Do we just not care anymore? Like, how is it going to work? You know what I mean? Because like, it's a pretty standard plot.
They're trying to find Princess Charlotte in the sequel. So.
When I feel like too, the idea of beauty, like it's definitely gotten distorted, but the main problem for Camille, I feel like, is how they are using like the desire for beauty as an excuse to imprison her.
Yeah, like exploiting the bells.
Yeah, like exploiting all the bells for their power. But they did mention in this book a lot the idea of like, what if there was some sort of elixir or something that you could use instead of exploiting the bells. And I could see them pulling on that more. Like, what if there was something outside of people that they could do?
Kitty. A visitor just showed up. Hi.
Most beautiful of us all.
Oh, hi there. She just showed up. And why are you sitting so close to me? This is weird.
Has some feelings.
She doesn't usually love me. It's very strange.
Because your laptop is warm.
Probably. Well, you gonna sit or what? All right. No, stop it. She's rubbing against my laptop. Sorry.
I told you it's because the laptop is warm.
Probably. All right. Well, that actually kind of like leads into a question that I was going to bring up. And that is, because this is very like beauty focused, beauty based, whatever. And this, it sheds light on how different authors handle writing beauty and like what it means to society. So if you could change one thing about how YA deals with like the beautiful heroine, what would you do? No more pets are needed? Okay. Got yelled at.
I definitely loved how diverse all the beauty was in this book. Like pretty much every body type, every skin color, every hair, eye type. Like it was all beautiful. Like everyone was hoping to get just any one kind of beauty, So I loved that. I feel like we're moving away from it now, but still a lot of particularly YA heroes tend to be willowy white girls, a lot of redheads. Like,
I think I was joking with this with my friend group because I realized that we are, like, me and my two closest friends are the entirety of YA heroine stereotypes, because one of my friends is like blonde and tan, and then one of my other friends is short with like a short haircut and looks kind of like the manic pixie dream girl, and then I am the quirky redhead. So we're like, we are the three YA
Got 'em all.
heroines.
Yeah,
It's
I really
I-
liked that like Camille like saw beauty in people when they like didn't see it in themselves. You know, like she was like always trying to convince people that like there were things about them that were already beautiful that they didn't need to change.
Mhm.
That was like one of the things I really liked about her as a character.
For sure, yeah.
Often I find in like normal OG kind of like stereotypical YAs that, oh, the main character is beautiful and she doesn't know it, or oh, I think I'm so ugly and everyone's always told me I'm ugly, but then I get to this new world or society and everyone thinks I'm super hot, and it's always like, I didn't know, and I'm kind of like I'm kind of over it. So like I liked in this one how she was like, yeah, like I'm super hot and I can make people really hot, and like I'm just super beautiful, like everyone bow to me kind of thing. And then she like kind of gets into it and whatever later, but I did kind of like that. She was like, yeah, like I'm super beautiful and I can make other people beautiful. It's like in some other books, they kind of touch on, like, especially like in Divergent, that was a big one, how Triss is like, yeah, I'm not beautiful, like, at all. That's not a thing. And people were like, yeah, so you're not beautiful, but like you're really strong and you're striking and you can do all these other things, so like who cares? And I was like, that is good. But I haven't found that much in other YA, regardless of what the person thinks about themselves.
I was interested too in how they talked about men versus women being treated in the beauty world.
Hmm.
Did I freeze? Sorry, my
No, you're
internet
good.
is really bad here. Okay. Yeah, particularly when August and Camille were talking to each other, there was a lot of talk of like, oh, well, how come the men don't have to come to you as much? Like, how come they don't have to do as drastic of beauty procedures? And I would hope in book 2 that we would get more on like how much August has had to go through, because his mom specifically talked about making him extra good looking, used for this kind of purpose. I kind of wish it was in third person so that we could like jump POVs a little easier and see some of his stuff in future books.
Yeah, because I feel like with Camille out of the palace, we're going to need a POV in the palace to know what's going on there.
Oh,
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I've read so many third person books lately that I was like, oh, so we're not going to find out what happened to Charlotte. We have to go in later and figure that out.
Yeah, well, like, as I'm gonna say, like, oh, my personal thing is with like, I've been modeling for a long time, and yeah, women's fashion is always more drastic, more intense, more flashy than men's fashion. And I'm friends with a lot of male models, and I find that they're more vain than the female models, possibly because they're like, the way that their beauty is, everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're so hot, like, ooh, you're so muscular, woo, everyone's like, wow. And then women is like, yeah, but like you could be skinnier. So it like always has that like double edge of like fashion. And men in fashion are meant to be the accessory, which I think is interesting, because modeling is one of the only industries where women are paid higher and treated better than men. So men are just kind of supposed to be there as like eye candy, or just to be like, oh, here is the strength, and like here is the the feminine beautifulness, whatever. But like they're not really the focus of anything. So it would be interesting to see from this book, like how, yeah, the men are treated versus the women are treated, how the women have to go through much more drastic changes than the men, which is, like, it's happening now. It's a thing. It's how fashion works. And I both like that and don't like that.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
I would be really curious to see in later books too, like, are there belles of other genders? Like, are there any male belles, any non-binary belles? Like,
It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the bells are all women.
Yeah. Like, would it be like bells and
what
bows?
is that? Could they do something else?
Like,
Yeah, that would be interesting to have a male bell. A bow, I don't know. It would be interesting.
Yes. I loved their secret language that was in pastels. I thought that was so cool.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
How
forgot
they had
about
created
that.
a language and could communicate with each other in this like made up language that was in colors instead of letters or characters. That was so cool. But also, I feel like Adel was like pretty explicit in giving Camille some clues as to where she was, and Camille was like, "Don't know what that means." Toss the over my shoulder, and I would have liked to see Camille be more like, "Oh, well, we have these things. Why don't we try and figure out what that means and go there next?" Since we're obviously not going to be staying here the whole time. The same with her mom's book, her Belle book that she wasn't supposed to have. She was like, "Look at this very valuable and rare book I'm not supposed to have. I'm only going to read 2 pages of it and hide it." And I feel like if that was most people, we would like want to read the entire thing in one sitting because it's like from
Yeah, for sure. Also, what do we think about the mom? Like, surprise! There's the mom, and you're like, what? And then it ended.
Really the mom, right? She's like how they've been making copies of the same bell. So
Yeah.
it was like not the real mom. There was like this other one who was the mom, right?
Honestly, it's been a little while since I read
Yeah, I think this
so
falls into the things I was confused by category.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I do remember being like, what? Like, yeah, that was where you lost me a little bit, just with that one.
I think it had to do with like laying foundation for this like blood idea that they're going to look at in later books. I think it was like a clue as to how the bells are made, and when one misbehaves, they just make a copy of it. And so they were talking about who was it? I think it was Hannah who was back at the regular house, and she was writing her saying like, "It's the strangest thing. There's this baby bell who looks just like you, saying everything." Like they were like planning for her to misbehave, and they already knew it was going to happen.
See, I thought when Hannah was talking about like the baby bell who looked just like her, I just figured they were just like recloning the bells over and over again.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I thought. Is that like every like few generations they were just like having the same look, basically. Yeah, so
template like pops back up. That's real poor planning to have the same one 3 templates in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, no breaks in between.
You're definitely gonna get caught that way, guys.
Yeah. I guess they don't care if the bells catch them.
True.
Yeah, because then they just have another one. They're like, whatever, we'll just start using this one now.
There were no consequences for Camille finding that entire room full of bells. So
Yeah, like I don't think the typical people care, because I don't think they really see the bells as people.
yeah, for sure. How we doing on the comments for anything there?
And Griswold, I wish that when it came time to wake the sister, that the bell's powers were needed to wake her instead of Camille realizing she was poisoned.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I was interested by the idea of them like combining and using their powers to like clean the blood, which was something that hadn't really been done before.
It kind of like circles back to that, like what can they do, what can't they do? Like sometimes random magic is being introduced, and you're like, okay. I feel like that was one of those sections where it was like suddenly they can do it because they need to do it, and I was like, okay, that's
yeah. And I do feel like the groundwork was laid for that, because like they talked about how her mom accidentally killed someone, and Camille did wonder like, well, what if I can hurt someone theoretically, could I also heal them? But I would have liked if there was like a little more practice where she was like, what can I do? Shout out to Anne Griswold, always reading the books.
All right, so you're gonna have to remind me. We're gonna have to remind me, Meg, because you're the one that finished this the most recently. That at the end they all run away and they have like a dragon egg, and we're going into middle of nowhere, smuggled out in the night. That's from what I remember of that, being like, what is happening? Where are you going? Why? Because we're trying to find all the tea houses and we're trying to, the rebellion, yeah, but also like dragon eggs. And I was like, okay, what?
Yeah, so they are disguising themselves as merchants, and for whatever reason they thought the best idea would be to disguise her as a merchant of something extremely rare. But she had these extra teacup dragon eggs. There were like 5 of them, and so she handed them and was like, use them if you need to. And so now they're disguised and they are running off. I wasn't personally super clear on what the plan was, like where they were going. I just knew they were going into hiding. And then they got to the Spice Islands and Adel found them. Somehow Adel was like, oh, look, you're here now. Welcome to this rebellion that you were not particularly looking for. But you're here now. Which, if anyone could do it, Adel could. She was awesome. I was a big fan of her.
Character. I like the fight that like she never gave up, and you kind of saw that in some of the other bells, or like they were expected to, and she never did. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be so bad. Like someone's gonna get murdered. I don't know, but like Edel was like, she went for it. I was so happy.
Just laughed.
Yeah, maybe that's part of my issue with Amber right from the beginning of like, why is this one your best friend when this one is clearly awesomer?
Valerie is just so sweet. Like she wanted it really bad too. She cried when she didn't get it, but she was really nice.
Yeah.
I am, when I was reading, I was very interested in, and I am interested to continue seeing what they are doing, like what their long-term plan is going to be with all these bells who have now gone missing. Because when it was just Adel, they were like, no one has to know that she's not here, but now half of the bells are missing. So like, what do you do now? Presumably Sophia's going to bring a new bell in to be her favorite. They'll have to help her.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what they focus on for the rest of the series. Like almost enough, maybe I'll keep reading it or read reviews, see if it's going the way I want it to. Because like there's a lot of like societal elements they could look at moving forward of like how everything is kind of built on top of each other and where the bells fit into everything. But I don't know. Rebellions make me nervous at this point. I feel like it always heads towards rebellions.
Yeah.
Always.
Ooh, I would love to see Sophia use all that blood that she has and make her own bell, but like maybe it goes wrong and is like twisted like she is. That would be really cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's so much potential here and like a lot of different things that could continue to grow into like, oh wow, that was
really good.
Incredible. Yeah. So I'm curious for sure.
I'm almost wondering if she hadn't made it a YA, like if this had been just a regular fantasy novel, if she could have dove into it a little bit more, if she could have gotten maybe more of the backstory fleshed out, she could have even made the characters like even worse, and I would have been here for it. But I'm wondering if maybe that like wouldn't sell or something, if they were like, oh, something with beautiful young people, have to make it YA. And I'm sure she didn't.
I don't know. I feel like I would believe it less if there was an adult main character who had never questioned the system. I definitely see, like, it doesn't surprise me that Camille hadn't wondered whether this was actually
for sure
a system. But if it was an adult, I would be like, you didn't realize this sooner.
I mean, if you're in a society where that's like so prevalent and it's like being beaten into you from birth, like, yeah, maybe you wouldn't. But I think, it would have been cool. It's like, you could have gone like super hard, super dark with this one. And she kind of did, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. Like y'all just like killed someone and then like had multiple like appointments that went real late and real wrong. Really creepy.
I loved that Sophia, like all the things that were beautiful, like the bells, flowers, and all those things, Sophia like managed to just take all of them and use them in a negative way. So it's like, look at this beautiful thing. Too bad it's also poison.
Well, it's like, well, do you guys think that she's the villain because she thinks about vanity? Or do you think she's the villain because she's like found a way to manipulate it? And also, like, what does that mean for women villains? Is like the only thing that they can do.
it worked within the world it was set up in, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked her as a villain. She was
Yeah.
I would have liked more nuance to her,
Yeah.
but like she worked.
I am interested in seeing if they delve more into like this idea that they tried to change her manner but couldn't. Like what was the cause of that? And obviously like the idea of changing people's manners at all is kind of shady. But the fact that like her mother struggled with the same thing, but they were able to fix it, like that whole generational thing is really interesting to me. And I would be curious to see them delving into that a little bit more, particularly since Charlotte's going to be around and doesn't seem to have the same problem.
Well, are there any other questions? We've been talking for about 45 minutes.
I'm trying to think. I feel like there was a couple more things, but maybe there wasn't. The covers are gorgeous on all of these.
Yeah.
I love them. I thought it was cool on the cover. She's wearing like one of the dresses that they describe in at the very beginning of the book. She's talking about like the red skirts and the cream top and stuff with the roses in her hair. I was like, it's on the cover. It's like the title in the prose somewhere.
Yeah, right. If we missed any of your comments, please ask them now.
Nothing else.
Read it if you haven't, if you made it this far, and for some reason still want to read it after all our spoilers, you should.
Well, honestly, I feel like there wasn't any like earth-shattering plot twists, really. So like, I could have been spoiled and still enjoyed it about equally as much as I did.
Because like the plot twists that were there were fairly expected ones. You know, like there's something wrong with the, you know, like there's some people conspiring to do something bad and someone betrays her, you know, like typical for the genre.
Beauty's only skin deep and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like the world is really the thing that I was like, that made me like sit up because it was different. Even though like, you know, uglies is a thing and stuff, the world still just felt very different and every bit as eye-catching as it was supposed to be.
I actually remember when this first came out reading something about from Dhonielle Clayton talking about like how she got the idea, and apparently she was like at a mall or something and she overheard this group of teenage boys talking about their girlfriends and like what they would change about them. And then she was thinking like, so like, oh, you know, I wish my girl had longer legs or whatever. And she was kind of like listening to that and being like, oh, like what would happen if you just could? Or if someone didn't like something about someone else, it was like, oh, I don't like that. Go fix your nose. Like it's not in this season to have a big nose, like just that kind of thing. And like with fashion and so like that, it's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it was. And it was like very unsettling again because she had that, it was like an author's note at the end of the book that was like, dear reader, this thing happened to me and I became obsessed as a child. And she would actually like cut out of magazines like boobs and legs and hair that were all like considered beautiful. And she said she has this like room in her childhood home that is like papered in it that she hasn't looked at since, but that was like the formative period for what eventually became this book. So that was really interesting to read.
Well, thinking of like fashion, sure, it makes its rounds and anything can be in fashion. Oh, this season it's, you know, the dark green color, and oh, in the 90s everything was low-rise jeans and now it's high-rise jeans, and oh, that's just a cycle. But like the idea of making it something about a person, I think was like the twist that I liked on it. It wasn't just like, oh, red jeans are in style. It's like, oh, well, red hair and freckles are in style. And, you know, oh, you haven't gotten that done yet. Like, what are you doing? And then like, and seeing that, I remember also seeing stuff on Twitter because I follow a lot of like body positive things and also like a lot of models and that kind of thing. How I think it was a couple months ago, just before like the summer started, that there was an article about how, oh, there's this like part of your body, like on your hip, that if you expose that now, it's like cool and like, oh, it's the new trend of summer to like expose this like piece of skin on your hip, and everyone was like, no, like that's a body, like don't call my body trendy. Or how like, oh, it's trendy to be, you know, plus size now, and it's okay if you're size 12. Like, oh wow, like something fun for summer, and people were like, that's not okay, like that's not you trying to sell me a new color. That's like that's you trying to sell me a new body. Like it's just so weird to like see that sort of now, and I'm like, no, this is weird.
And the thing is too, though, is that they were just being overt about it. Like body ideals have been there like throughout time. They've changed throughout the decades and stuff. And like if you look at it, you can see it happening. But the idea of it being so overt like makes you like, wait, that's uncomfortable. And then you have to really question like, oh, but what about, you know, this thing or that thing that 20 years ago, if you were this height and this shape, it was in, and now if you're like this height and this shape, it's really in.
Well, yeah, also like a really good commentary on how like we all think that like if we could just change like a couple things about ourselves, we'd be happy. You know, like if I was this many pounds lighter and had this shaped face, and like, you know, like that if my lips were, you know, plumper or whatever, that we'd be happy. But like the truth is that like once you have that ability, you're like never going to be happy because you're always going to be like chasing after the new thing. Yeah.
For sure. Oh, it was so good. I enjoyed quite a lot about this book. I know we just like talked about all the nitpicky things, but I really did enjoy this book a lot.
Sorry, there's someone just decided to start mowing their lawn very loudly outside my window, so
At
I'm so sorry if you can hear that.
It's a little pre-dinner lawn mowing. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just like,
it's normal.
I don't know. It's this one neighbor who just loves to do very loud things at random times of the day. And I'm like, why? They're like, let's use the leaf blower at like 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. And I'm like, well, why? Like, I'm trying to film a video. Do you mind? No, I liked the whole like fashion, but also book stuff because like that's me and like what I do in my life. So I was like, cool. I can put these things together. Yes, overall, I quite enjoyed it. Has a good place on my shelf.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, should we wrap this up? Any final thoughts for tonight?
Read the book.
Yeah.
I'm glad I gave this one a try. I don't think I would have otherwise, but it was interesting.
Yeah. Got a pretty good audiobook, so if anyone wants to listen to the audiobook.
Oh,
nice.
Recommend it.
Oh, sounds like that would be a good audiobook.
And then next month we are reading Obsidio.
Yes. I just finished Gemina because I was like, it's time that I do that. And it was good.
Yes.
I had a minor freak out last night when I was finishing it.
Oh yeah.
But everything worked out. Everything's okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody that joined us today for our chat on the Bells. Again, you should read it if you haven't, or just start pawning it off to all your friends because it's a good discussion-filled book. We are coming to you with videos on Tuesday and Thursday this week, and of course our live chats on Sunday. Next month's book club is going to be Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, like we just said. Make sure to read it, and we will all come back to discuss in a month. Do we know what our live chat next week is? Because I didn't write it down.
TBD.
Okay, our live chat will be announced in our next video on Tuesday. Well, have a good rest of your week, everybody, and we'll see you at our next chat. Bye! Bye.